We're now in a position to create our first Ionic app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my terminal, increase the size again. So I'm just going to check that I have Ionic installed by doing the commands. Yep, and I've got Cordova. Oops, to put a space in. 7.01. So I'm okay, I'm good to go. Here's a useful command, clear. We go back just to the prompt. So let's look at the docs before we go through with this. When you're creating an Ionic application, what you have to do is have it in the right place. So we're going to use the command line interface, the git bash window, to make our structure that we're going to need in order to create our application in order that we know where it is. When we have that structure in place, one simple command line instruction will create an application that has the Ionic framework in place. Now there are several options when you are creating an application. You can have a tabs, makes sense, side menu, blank, super, and tutorial. We're just going to do the blank. We're going to start with the most basic of the commands in order to help us to understand what's going on inside Ionic. So that's what we'll do. So let's go to our command line interface again and start. So let's change from the directory that I'm in, and it opens up default in the C drive. So CD, D, and I'm now in my D drive. So let's have a look at my D drive and you'll see what we've got here. In my D drive, lots of junk, but I'm going to make an application folder, and I'm going to call it 318 apps, and that's what I'll call it. Now the best advice is to make it without spaces, so that's exactly what I'll do here. So I'm in my D drive, I do mkdir 318 apps. It doesn't go there. So what we need to do is need to change into that directory that we have just created. So cd change directory 318 apps. We're now inside the directory, as you'll see from the structure there. So in order to make our new application, which I'm going to call transfer data, we do Ionic start transfer data, and I'm going to use the blank template. So if I click enter, would I like to integrate your apps with that? So just tap yes, yes. So it's creating the directory, and this can take some time. There's quite a lot for it to do. The structure is fairly complicated, or it's detailed. It's detailed. Not as complicated as an Angular structure, but it certainly takes some time for it to go off to the various places and get the bits that it needs in order to create the framework that we're going to use. Now at the end it may complain that I haven't logged into my Git account. I don't know whether I have or not, but if it does, it's not a fatal error as it says. It's just a nuisance for the application, and it's not linked directly to my Git repositories. So let's watch this for a minute or two, and I'll stop talking. And our application is now created. So what's even good stuff that we can do is I can now just type the word code in here. Then the full stop. And this will open up Visual Studio Code. Isn't that neat? So Visual Studio Code has opened up inside the application that we are going to use. Our application is here, our 318 apps folder, node modules you can ignore, and here's our application itself, transfer data. Now you see that if you hover over it you get the path if you can't remember where you put it, but let's expand on that tree node and you'll see what we get. This will mean nothing to you at the moment, and neither it should unless you've already been experienced in some of the Angular and Ionic developments. Just ignore most of it. Our application is in here. The applet itself, any assets we have, pages that we're going to see, any themes we're going to apply, and a master index HTML page, which is our starter page for our application. The manifest allows us to change the details of the application's title and so forth, and service workers enable us to create those progressive apps that we were going to talking about, which allow us to maintain state and allow a machine to install the application and so forth. But inside the app, we've got a component, an HTML, a module, main, TS. Our pages, we only have one page. It starts off with the default one page, and we will add another page in a moment. And our page has HTML, SCSS. Now, SCSS is a particular type of CSS which is driven by Sass, which is a way of interpreting the CSS in a particular fashion, and our home TS, which is what our page is doing. On the HTML page, you can see that this home page is expected to display the text, "The world is your oyster. If you get lost, go to this link." So that's really good. So we can actually now test our app, and the way in which we're going to do that is going by View, Integrated Terminal. Now you can also press the Control button and the apostrophe sign, which is underneath the @ and you will get the terminal. So here I am, I'm in the terminal, and you can see that the default opening point is the folder. But we want to go into the application itself. So I've got to do CD and I'm now inside the transfer data application folder, and I'm now in a position to give it the instruction to serve it. And what will happen is that the application will be saved, compiled, and created as an HTML page inside the default browser on your machine. So I click this, and it can take some time. But this on this one, it shouldn't take long. But if you've got a complicated application, this can take a little bit of time while it gets all the bits it needs in order to do it. And there's my application. Exactly as we said, the world is your oyster. If you get lost, the docs will be your guide. So what I want to do now is I want to change the interface slightly so that I can use this more effectively. So I've now got split windows by using the windows and the left and right arrow keys. And if I now do this, that's kind of more mobile shaped, isn't it? And what I can do is I can now work with this. The world is your lobster. Save it, Control S, and it reserves the application. You're getting a live preview of the changes you've made, and that is hugely powerful. So we've got a working application which is running through our Ionic server using the Ionic framework and being put into a browser as a hybrid application. In order to stop the server, Control and C, and we go straight back into the command prompt for our application folder. File, save all, and you can close everything down until we next develop the application.